Welcome to Honest Money. On today's episode, Warren Ingram speaks to Craig Isaacson from Unlimited Solar to see how you can cut down on your monthly water and electricity costs. Warren and Craig speak about using solar solutions, small changes you can make around your house, what grid-tied solar solutions mean, what the lifespan of a solar setup is, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and share if you're enjoying the show.
Welcome to another very interesting, very different episode of Honest Money. I'm joined today by Craig Isaacson, who's from a business called Unlimited Solar. And I'm going to give Craig a chance to speak now. But just for you listening, why have I got someone from Unlimited Solar on the Honest Money show? Have I lost the plot? Have we run out of content? And I think to give you some background, we're going to be talking about, firstly, two aspects to money. One is how to save money. So how do you control your spending? How do you take exercise a bit more control on the way your money gets allocated for whether it be water or electricity? And then secondly, a slightly different slant on investing. So how do you put money down now to save money for the future? And it could be on future expenses. It could be to add value to a property or a house, etc. So I think it is an honest money show. It is about money. It's just a different way of looking at money. And then lastly, and it's kind of quite personal for us on Honest Money. It's about allocating your money in a way that builds the future. It's about saying, we want to stop spending money, on coal-fired power plants and on fossil fuels, etc. We're trying to kind of allocate money to the future so that, between us, our kids and our children's children one day actually have a place to live and breathe fresh air, etc. And so this is this is really topical and kind of close to our heart. So Craig Isaacson, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Warren, thanks a lot for having me on the show. I'm excited to get started.
So, Craig, I know you're not a media star, and this isn't something you do all day. So I'm really grateful to you that you take the time and be brave enough to kind of share your knowledge and help us learn a bit more about this. So I thought maybe let's kick off talking about maybe looking at this as a form of investment. I know you feel quite strongly that actually the kind of an investment in solar or an investment in water saving technology is actually an investment. And I'd love you to tell me more about that.
So I think there are a few different ways to look at solar, and one angle is certainly as an investment. So solar as an investment, I suppose, for the homeowner would be in the form of a solar geyser, or maybe a grid-tied solar system. Traditionally, solar as an investment is more for, geared towards maybe corporates, in the sense that you'll get the best return on investment in environments where you'll use the power during the day when the sun is shining without storing it in batteries at all. So that's typically in commercial properties or shopping centers, hospitals, any factory, commercial or industrial building. Really, that's the best way to get a return on investment. So it would mean that you'd install solar panels on the roof, and those solar panels would basically feed into your DB board and supplement the power that you're using. Would maybe make up a large percentage of the power that you're using at the time. That's really the solar as an investment. And then I suppose to touch on just a broader term, investment may not, just be financial. And in South Africa, we do find ourselves in a situation where, we have load shedding and we do have a great deal of sun, and solar panels do work well. So we do have an opportunity to cater for that as well. Not really a financial investment, but more of a lifestyle kind of investment.
So there's quite a bit to discuss there. I want to come back to some terms here. So when you're talking about solar is not just then me putting a solar panel on my roof and a battery in my basement and off we go. When you're talking about solar, it could also be a solar geyser that I use to heat my water for my showers, or If people are still doing baths, then bathing as well. And I just wanted to get a kind of a sense from you, in a typical house, if I were to say I've got a little bit of money and I want to save the most money on electricity costs, how do I allocate that money? To a solar geyser or to solar panels?
So I'd certainly say that the geyser is the place to start. It's the right place to start. Geysers traditionally make up about 35 to 40% of your total electricity bill at home in a typical household. And so, it doesn't have to be solar necessarily, but if you bought a solar geyser or a heat pump or a gas geyser, you'd certainly save a substantial chunk of that. With solar geysers or heat pumps, obviously, we aim to save you probably around 70% of that 40%, so kind of 28 to 30% maybe of the total bill. A gas geyser, obviously, you'd save 100% of the electricity consumption, but you'd still be paying for gas. So there's more than one way to reduce your geyser spend, and you don't have to, kind of spend all that money up front. You could look at maybe installing a geyser timer. Maybe look to alter the times that you're showering and make small adjustments, lifestyle adjustments that could help reduce your geyser spend. But the geyser, in our opinion, would be the best place to start.
So tell us a bit more. You mentioned you adjust the time when you would shower. How does that help?
So I'm saying if you've got more than one person in a household, and you could, you kind of knew when you needed to heat the geyser. So if you showered at 6 a.m. and 8 o'clock at night, you'd only turn the geyser on for an hour or two before each of those shower times, rather than having it on, all day. To make minor lifestyle adjustments that could make a small difference.
So there is a great money saving tip already. I mean, even if you can't afford the geyser, put a timer on, a solar geyser, then put a timer on your geyser and make sure that you're not running it all the time. And that will already save you money. And if that gives you enough money to buy the solar geyser as well, a great effort. I must say it's something that I've done a while ago now, and it did make a huge difference to our electricity bill, was just, putting on a solar geyser. Unfortunately, because I didn't speak to Craig about this, I put the solar panels and the batteries on before I put the solar geyser. So my electricity bill plummeted after I put the geyser on. So I think it makes sense what you're saying. And Craig, I want to talk a little bit about another piece of jargon there, a grid-tied solar solution. What is a grid-tied solar solution?
So when we talk about a grid-tied solar solution, we speak about panels on top of the roof feeding directly into your DB board through an inverter without using any batteries. So directly linked to the grid, meaning that you wouldn't be storing the power at all. As you produced it, you'd hopefully be using it in your facility. That is the, simplest and cheapest way to install a solar PV system, a solar electrical system. And that's why it's got, the best return on investment, because you don't have any batteries in the system, which are costly. But at the same time, you wouldn't have any backup. So even if you had a power outage or load shedding, during the day when the sun was shining, your system wouldn't, be producing power at that time, because it needs the grid. It's tied to the grid. It's, runs in parallel to the grid. So it needs the grid to function.
So that's a straight money saving option. That's not about building any kind of backup from Eskom, from load shedding or anything. That's just about saying I'm spending whatever it is, $5,000 a month on electricity, and if I put some panels on my roof and plug that into my house, I can find a way to spend a bit less. And over time, hopefully, I get a financial reward from the panels that the upfront cost of the panels.
Correct. So it's proven to be very popular in sort of industrial buildings where guys use a lot of electricity, and landlords are certainly installing a lot of these kind of systems, either to make their buildings more attractive to potential tenants with the lower electricity bills where they pass on the savings, or to as an investment for themselves where they'll supply power at the Eskom or or municipal rate to their tenants, and kind of they'll make the difference in the saving.
Okay. So let's jump a bit more to how people. I mean, there's sort of two dynamics that I pick up when I have conversations about solar with home users, and one is they're so tired of load shedding, they're so tired of relying on Eskom to supply their power that they want to get off the grid altogether. In other words, they want to have their own power that they produce in whatever form, and they don't rely on a municipality or a government entity of any description. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then the other option is people who say, well, I'm happy to use my own power for a certain proportion of what I spend and a certain proportion of my consumption of electricity, and I'm happy to use Eskom for another portion. And if there's load shedding, it means that whatever it is, 50 or 80% of my power is still okay because I've got it, but the last 20% I can't use. And I just want to get an idea from you for people that go completely, and I think the jargon's off grid now. Now I sound like I know what I'm talking about, and I don't. But for people who go, want no reliance on Eskom or city power or whatever it is, wherever they live, they want to be on their own. Let's call that off grid. And that doesn't mean that they're a doomsday prepper living in the middle of nowhere. That's someone that could be living in the middle of a city, but they just want to do their own thing. Is that significantly more expensive than someone who says, I'll provide some of my own power and some of my own storage, but I'm not going to be completely off grid? What's the kind of difference there? Is it big or is it small?
No, it's very big. It's massive. So again, we also get a lot of people coming in saying that they want to go off grid, but it's more emotional than anything else. I think, as you rightly said, people are fed up with Eskom and load shedding and just the massive inconveniences around it. So for us, it's a lot about managing people's expectations. Obviously, it is possible to go off grid if you've got the budget for it, and you have enough roof space, and certainly you can go off grid. But the vast majority of people will rather install what we refer to as a hybrid system, meaning, as you said earlier, that back up their essential items, and that's different per person. Some people just want a few lights and to watch TV. Other people need a bit more security and their fridges to run, and some people need their Bitcoin machines to run. That's neither here nor there. But it's more of a popular scenario that we'll kind of talk to people and say, look, Eskom's not all that bad at the moment. Rather get an affordable system that's got enough backup so that you're comfortable during load shedding. And that's really where we call it a lifestyle investment more than just a financial. Obviously, there's a saving financially, but it's more that you're comfortable during load shedding.
So on that note, I'm thinking about someone living in an apartment block. They what do they do if they want to save a bit of money, or at least get a bit of backup? How do they? I mean, I'm guessing it would be very difficult in an apartment block to go and put up your own solar panel somewhere, or even your own solar geyser. Is there anything that someone like that can do?
So I think certainly it can start with small things. Firstly, just to be conscious of where you're using power from a savings point of view. Let's start with that. So I think it would be just to understand where you're using power and to be more aware of it. If you're more aware of it, you're always more likely to do the small things that certainly do add up if you do enough of them. So that would be maybe turning off lights if you leave a room, installing low flow shower roses. Really inexpensive exercises.
Let's stop there for a second, Craig. Are we talking about plants now? Low flow shower roses. What are we on now?
So a low flow shower rose would be just a shower head that's got a small maybe aerator, which is a little fitting that I guess in simple terms adds air to the to your shower to make it feel like it used to feel, but maybe it will use a bit less a bit less water than it used to. By using less water, obviously you'll save a bit of water, and you will save on electricity as well, because if it's hot water, there's a cost to heating that. So, the less you use, the less you'll have to reheat, type of thing. So those are small ways I'd say that people living in complexes could save, people living in high-rise apartments could save. A lot of the newer buildings are being built with solar in mind. So developers are installing solar panels on these buildings already. A lot of them are already quite energy efficient. And then just to make sure that your appliances are energy efficient. So if you've got, most of the newer appliances are, but if you bought a new fridge, just to be aware of, the energy rating. Most appliances have different energy ratings on them, which customers can research before they buy a new appliance, whether that's a kettle or a fridge. Those are small ways that you can save. Then in terms of backup, it's not too complicated to install a small inverter and a battery backup system, even in an apartment block, even in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. That's they all have their own DB boards, and that's not complicated at all. So certainly people can have a backup during load shedding.
And I'm thinking, as you were saying, the other big one I would think of would be to change your light bulbs if you haven't already, so that you use LED bulbs, because I know the old-fashioned light bulbs are super inefficient. I know they might seem cheap, but to me, LED makes a big difference. And then also, I'm guessing, I'm not 100% sure of this, but is it possible to put a geyser timer in your own geyser if you're living in an apartment block?
Correct. Both great points. I think LED lights are very important, and something that somebody would have to do as kind of one of the first steps to achieving, as you call it, energy autonomy, or getting closer to energy autonomy. Those are both great ways to save.
And then I'm guessing, for someone that has a freestanding property, and they go through the expense of putting solar panels on their roof, they put the solar geyser in, potentially, put the battery solution in. There will be a time when that battery needs to be changed, however many years. But beyond that, I'm guessing the panels don't need to be changed every 2 or 3 years. I'm hoping that you're going to tell me that that's not the case. That they can live on the roof for quite some time with very little maintenance. Correct.
So panels are very durable. They have a lifespan of around 20 odd years. So that's a very efficient place to start in terms of installing a system. And then I guess you can build around that. So your inverter will hopefully last for 5 to 10 years, maybe more than that, depending on the type of inverter that you have. And then batteries, I guess there's different types. The newer batteries are sort of lithium, which hopefully do have quite a long lifespan as well. I say hopefully because they're relatively new in our market, but they are being sold with 10-year warranties at the moment. So and we don't seem to be experiencing too many issues, in the market. So it's very encouraging, because from a financial point of view, you can kind of work, you can be confident to use that equipment in your modeling, and also, to be sure that you're buying products that will last, that, you're not kind of having to replace every year.
I think, for me, that would be a key point in this, is that, if you're going to go on this exercise, spending a little bit more to get high quality panels, the inverter for people like me that are not techies is kind of the brain of the whole thing. And then the batteries, if you spend a bit more on those things, they do last longer. The guarantees that you get provided are actually worth something in terms of service, etc. And I'm hoping, that they do add to the resale value of a house. I mean, I think that's something that time will tell. But I think people are at that point now where, as we said, for ethical reasons, that they'll want to consume less electricity from fossil fuel. And so, being able to produce some of their own would make sense. And then a lot of people like me, I guess, who are so tired of light switching off, in the middle of a podcast recording, or, just not being able to kind of function on your computer because your Wi-Fi has crashed. Those things, I think, putting them in your house, I do think will add value. And I do think it's the right thing to do, to put solar geysers on. It saves electricity for everybody. It saves money for you. And the less power we're consuming at the moment, unnecessarily, the better. So it just makes sense to me on multiple levels. The one thing I've always got my favorite question, Craig, which I ask all our guests, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to prepare you for that now. But the one thing I wanted to ask you was, if you were sitting there today and this was all new to you, what would be the one tip you would want to give somebody that's looking at saving money and kind of, let's say, using your angle, investing correctly? What would be the one thing they should look at, straight away? What's the one action they can take?
So from my side, I'd say that the best place to start would be with your geyser. It contributes to a large percentage of your total electricity usage, and certainly if you can afford to install a solar geyser or a heat pump or a gas geyser, that would be definitely the place to start, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Thanks, Craig. Now we're going to take you a little bit out of your comfort zone, and it's my favorite question I ask all our guests. If you could now, with the benefit of some life experience and having lived the life you've lived to this point, meet your 18 or 21-year-old self, what would be the one lesson you would like to tell yourself at that point? And I know you're not a financial guru, so it doesn't have to be a kind of the best piece of financial advice you've heard, but what would be the one thing you'd love to teach yourself?
I'd say just to learn as much as you can, and to back yourself and be confident and take risks when you're that young, because you do have time to build back, and you generally don't have too many responsibilities, when you're 18 and 21 years old. So I'd say, just to kind of learn as much as possible, study if you can, and get something behind you and really go for it then. There's very little to lose at that stage. If you lose a year or two, you'll always be able to build back.
Fantastic. Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. It is powerful advice. I think, I don't think any time is wasted if you're building experience. Not all experience will be positive, and some of our best lessons in life might be from the odd hiccup and the odd stumble along the way. And those are the things that teach us lessons. When the numbers get bigger and the pressure gets greater, those are the things we rely on. So I think that's brilliant advice. Thank you. Craig Isaacson from Unlimited Solar, it's been so great having you on the show. Really appreciate your time and effort. I know this was a bit stressful for you in anticipation, but it was good, and I'm sure our listeners will really appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent, Warren. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you for listening to Honest Money. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is @WarrenIngram. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Chat soon.